Welcome to the channel. This is my entire Death Guard collection for games of Horus Heresy. It's just south of 5,000 points and I feel like it's done for now. But Death Guard players will know that this isn't the typical sort of list. This isn't the typical sort of collection that you'd get for Death Guard because Death Guard want lots of tanks and things. So we'll talk about what's in it and why I've got it and what I'd like to add eventually to it. Now, before we begin, I have to shout out Den of Imagination Painting Studios because there is no way I can paint an army that is as gorgeous as this here. So massive shout out to Den of Imagination for painting all of these bad boys up for me. Because it's Den of Imagination, they've done lots of awesome things that I can't do, like the cell shading on the plasma. Simple things like this cloak here. I mean, there's no way I'd go from so dark to so light on a cloak. Don't know how to do that, but it looks very natural. Extra details like that and the battle damage, and I wanted them to look not too plaguey yet. This is like Isfan 3 Death Guard before they fell to chaos, so they didn't take that much care of their armour, so there is some battle damage on it. And because it's Den of Imagination, of course, everything is magnetised. Even the turret weaponry on the vehicles is magnetised. Actually, even on the Grave-Worn Terminators, all of these, they're all magnetised as well, so I can swap their arms combi things if I want to. So massive shout out to Den of Imagination. If you're looking for a painting service, then I'll put links in the video description below. They are the best painting service in the Sol system. But Death Guard, what do? Well, they basically count as stationary. So you can move and fire heavy weaponry as though you're stationary, which means when they shoot and when they fight, they don't get any bonuses because almost every single legion has a bonus in the fight phase or the shooting phase. The ones that don't are Death Guard, White Scars, they have a movement base bonus, and Thousand Suns, they can switch all their sergeants to Psychers. So Death Guard really get their bonuses from moving and not being slowed by terrain. And then there is a Rite of War, where you can take heavy weapon squads as troops. They don't get line, but suddenly you can bring lots of heavy weapon squads. If you do bring lots of heavy weapon squads, for example, all 3 of these, then it'll only leave me 3 troop slot things remaining. So I'm likely to only run 2 of these at the same time, and it would be filthy to run all 3 of these. However, in Death Guard, they're pretty filthy. So maybe not too filthy in Death Guard. I mean, this is what they're all about. If you don't run a heavy weapon las cannon team and you're running Death Guard, are you really running Death Guard? So they're heavy. These are all heavy. Leviathan Dreadnought's heavy. Scorpius is heavy. Grave Warden Terminators, not in the elite slot. They're also heavy as well. In fact, there's no fast attack choices in this collection because I really wanted to lean in the Reaping Rite of War, where you can take these guys as heavy, but I also really wanted to lean into the narrative, into the lore, where it's remorseless waves of infantry marching forward and just grinding everything underfoot. The other thing the Reaping Rite of War allows you to do is buy rad grenades, so that lowers your enemy's toughness in the first round of combat. So these power scythes that all the characters can take, strength 6, striking at toughness 3, these power scythes can suddenly do some work. Are they meta? Are they better than a Power Fist? Probably not, but I chucked them liberally in across the entire army because they're Death Guard. They have these things. The other Rite of War for Death Guard is the Creeping Path, where they basically ignore dangerous terrain, so you want lots of Phosphex. So Phosphex canister launchers on the Leviathan, Phosphex canister launchers on the Rapier batteries here, and that's pretty much it for the Phosphex for now. I'm looking forward to the Arquiter coming out in plastic. That's the Legion Bombard artillery piece that can also fire Phosphex down the table. So in the character slots, of course, we have Mortarion. He's faster than you think he is, because in the shooting phase, instead of shooting, he can teleport forward 10 inches and then still assault anyway. He's actually rather rapid. And he's one of the few Primarchs who's toughness 7, and he's one of the few Primarchs who also has 7 wounds, and he has a 4-up, it will not die. He's a tough cookie to take down, except for the fact that he has a 3-up 4-up invulnerable save instead of a 3-up invulnerable save. But Primarchs do Primarch things. They're big, they're mean, they're tough. And when you include them in your army, basically the Death Guard get a type of stubborn sort of rule. They never suffer any negatives due to combat resolution or fear or shell shock or things like that. He makes sure that they always come chonking forward. His scythe, silence, strength 8, AP 1 or 2, instant death. He's a beast. Only 6 attacks, but all sides have a reaping blow. So if he's in base contact with more than one model, he gets extra attacks. He's got reaping blow 2. The sides on the dudes, they have reaping blow 1. And Mortarion is nearly always in combat with more than one model, which gets him up to 8 attacks, which isn't too shabby for a Primarch. Next to him, these are the 2 new Praetors that were released with Horus Heresy 2nd edition. These are the Death Guard specific Praetors. They've got all the bits hanging off the back, and as I mentioned earlier, those cloaks just look stunning. Well done, Den of Imagination. Behind them is the older 2 Praetors, the 1st edition ones. I put them side by side there. You can see how things are growing in Heresy 2.0, and I'm not mad about it. The new miniatures have got a lot more detail on. I don't think they've released a bad character yet. There's a lot more detail on. They look a lot more hench. Of course, I don't have to run these as Praetors, and if you've seen any one of my battle reports, sometimes they might be a chaplain, sometimes they might be an Armistos, because putting an Armistos or a Master of Signals in a heavy weapon team gives them a Cognis Signum. Both the Armistos and Master of Signals have them, which means the heavy weapons teams hit on 2s and you can't shroud the shots. It just makes the firepower coming from the heavy weapon teams that much more brutal. Oh, the bases. Did I mention the bases are also from Den of Imagination as well? They make them paint their own bases. Awesome. So what I'll typically do is run at least a Praetor and at least a Armistos and Master of Signals with at least a heavy weapon team. And then I've got 40 breaches over here. Some with just bolters, some with the Volkite. And I wanted all the breaches in it because I felt that Mark III armor breaches was very, very Death Guard. They don't need cover. They're dragging their cover with them in the form of a 5-up invulnerable save boarding shield. And where you have breaches, you can add graviton blasters here, these things here. Now, these are heavy. So if you want to fire them, you have to stand still. But Death Guard, well, they always count as stationary unless you run. So these can move and fire these grav guns, and grav guns absolutely rip dreadnoughts and vehicles. Now, breaches are pretty expensive in a standard troop slot, and adding graviton weapons to them and rag grenades or toxin bombs to them as well, which Death Guard can also take, makes them even more expensive. So they're perhaps not the best min-max way of running some Death Guard. What you really want to do is have 1 or 2 units of breachers walking around all over the place, and then big squads of tactical marines chonking around all over the place, because infantry count as stationary. So you've got Fury of the First on tactical marines. If they stand still, they get an extra shot. And these guys always count as standing still unless they run. So a 20-man squad of tactical marines is chucking out 40 shots at 24-inch range, or 60 shots at 12-inch range all the time, regardless of whether they move or stand still. The amount of firepower you can put out from a tactical squad can be actually quite frightening. So if I was doing it the meta way, you'd have at least 60, I want to say 60 tactical marines, 3 times 20, or maybe 50, maybe 2 times 20 and 1 times 10 jumping around in a rhino all over the place. And you'll definitely want to put a Vexilla in there as well, so they don't fall back as far and they count as +1 for combat resolution. The number of times Vexillas have stopped my armies falling back because of that +1 to combat resolutions, you should always stick them on your tactical marines. And there's an argument to stick them on Terminators as well. +1 combat resolution is mint, and tactical marines in Death Guard can actually be quite frightening. Over here we have Death Shroud Terminators, the most expensive Terminators in the game at 70 points a pop. They're also the only 3 wound Terminators in the game, and they're all Battle Hardened 1. What does that mean? Battle Hardened 1 means they count as toughness 5 for the purposes of instant death. So you just can't kill him with 1 hit with a Power Fist. Power Fist on normal Terminators, instant kills them. Power Fists on these guys only suffer a wound. A las cannon, these guys at strength 9, Does not double out toughness 4 with battle hardened, because toughness 4 is battle hardened, counts as toughness 5. So strength 9 is not double 5. They can take it. So you're paying all those points for the toughness and resilience to deliver a chaplain or to deliver Mortarion up the table and just take hit after hit. They've got these power sides as well, just like the sergeants have. And then behind them are the Grave Warden Terminators. They're only weapon skill 4, but they're very shooty. They have a lot of poisoned 3-up shooty weaponry coming out of there. So weapon skill 4 Terminators, I often run them with a chaplain for that all-important re-roll all hit rolls in the first round of combat. But yeah, big shooty Terminators. Now, the one thing I'm missing from my Terminator collection is a dude with a banner, aka a herald, because a herald allows you to, basically gives you line. And if I put a banner in with the Grave Warden Terminators, they can score. Or if I had a banner for the Death Shroud Terminators, then they can become a retinue and attach to one of your HQs. And they get line. Line units, very important in games of Horus Heresy, the ability to score objectives. And as a general rule of thumb, at 3,000 points, you want a minimum 4, preferably 6 line units. I would have 2 line units per 1,000 points. And the best way to get line units, other than tactical squads, assault squads, breaches, things like that, the standard stuff, is a banner guy, either as a retinue or as a herald. Or get 2 banner guys, so you can have a retinue and a herald. That way you can have both. One thing you must remember, though, is if you make these guys a retinue, for example, and attach them to a character, the character cannot break away. They become one whole unit. So whenever you field Mortarion, for example, with his Death Shroud Terminators, never field them as a retinue, because Mortarion wants to leave these guys behind. He wants to do his shadow walk thing and dash 10 inches up the table, and suddenly he leaves them behind. He zips forward, redeploys in the shooting phase, and starts murdering people. Out of all the dreadnoughts I could have got, I got Leviathans in this collection because Leviathans felt the most Death Guard-y thing for me. I've got Scorpiuses as well, because infantry moving forward under the cover of barrages coming down all over the place, that felt very Death Guard for me, along with a big, massive Lord of War, the Typhon, with the Dreadhammer Siege Cannon, the biggest gun in the game. It felt very Death Guard-y to me. So this collection is about raining shells down from the sky, using heavy support choices as troops, and then marching forward with all the breaches, all the tacticals, and all the Terminators. It's a very specific Death Guard kind of list, but Death Guard can move and count as stationary, which means the Scorpiuses, for example, they can move their full 12 or 14 and still fire their missiles down, getting that pinning effect. It also means that I should really add a bunch of tanks. You could put Predators in there, Sicarans in there. You should, if you're doing Death Guard, you want to add some tanks in there, because then they can move at full distances and fire all their weapons at full profile. Tanks in Horus Heresy, in all other legions, if they want to fire all their guns, need to move half speed or under to fire all their guns. In Horus Heresy, if you move over half speed, at full speed, it's called cruising speed, then you're only firing one gun of full ballistic skill and all the remaining are snap firing. Unless you're Death Guard, because you count the stationary. So instead of bringing heavy support squads and Leviathans in your heavy slot, another way to run Death Guard is you bring Dreadnoughts, Contemptor Dreadnoughts in the elite slot, and that frees up the heavy slot to bring more tanks, Scorpiuses, a Predator squadron, a Sicaran squadron. Run your Dreadnoughts forward, then rain fire from the sky with as many big guns that you can get hold of. Then back that up with 50, 60 tactical Marines, double tapping all the time. Another party trick that Death Guard can do is take toxin bombs, which means if you charge them, you could take some wounds. They only cost 10 points per squad, and I don't take them very much, and I don't know why. Maybe because I haven't got 10, 20 points left over after I do a list, or yeah. Are you a Death Guard player? Do you run toxin bombs a lot? Please write in the comment section below. Maybe I should factor them into the points cost more, because they are a Death Guard thing, and I feel like you should do the things that your legions can do. At least it makes your legions feel more legion-y. Is that a word? It's a word now. So yeah, in my Death Guard collection, I was leaning into the Reaping Rite of War. and leaning into the narrative, having lots of shielded infantry marching forward into the enemy guns. If you're watching this video at time of release, there is a Horus Heresy battle report coming out on Sunday, and it hasn't got Death Guard in it, because I've only just recently picked up the second wave from Den of Imagination. But there will be Death Guard battle reports up on the channel featuring these bad boys, and there's already plenty of Death Guard battle reports on the channel featuring these bad boys. There's also loads of extra battle reports for Horus Heresy if you become a Tier 3 channel member. Tier 3 channel members get an extra battle report every single Winter's Wednesday, as well as the ones I chuck out on Sunday for everyone on YouTube. Channel members are lovely. Thank you if you're a channel member. Help keep the lights on. You're epic. But what is more epic is Horus Heresy. It is such a fantastic game. And what's incredible is just how different each Space Marine Legion feels, depending on what units you pick for them and depending on how you load them up. My Death Guard feel nothing like my other legions, and that's a testament to just how deep and varied the core rules are. So, massive shout out to Den of Imagination, thank you very much. And finally, over to you guys in the comment section. What legions do you run and why? Or do you run Death Guard? And what units have you got in it? How do you run your Death Guard? And if you got this far to the very end of the video, you're a legend. Thank you very much. Happy wargaming.